Hi. Very often when I'm in a session with a couple, I speak about the path of vulnerability and its importance in a relationship and restoring the relationship. But it's a scary thing for most of these couples. And today I want to ask my dear wife to tell us why she thinks it is so difficult.
Yes, I think you have to admit that you have a weakness or weaknesses. You have to admit that you made mistakes, and that is not easy for any person to admit that. And sometimes you have to ask for forgiveness, and sometimes you have to make changes, and that is also difficult. So, and you have to be teachable, and
Yeah.
that is not always easy, and it's very difficult for us human beings to do that.
Yeah. And very often, all of that is complicated because the person feels hurt by their spouse before, and they don't want to go through the risk of being hurt again. So they put up that shell, and they refuse to go down that path of vulnerability where they need to do all those things, admitting their weaknesses, etc., etc. But if the two people don't decide to go down that path of vulnerability, there's one very important thing that they will never be able to rebuild, and that is trust. Why do you think that is so?
Yes, you have to admit your mistakes, you have to show your weaknesses so that the other person can trust you, and you have to know the weaknesses of the other person so that you can trust him.
Yes.
And it is very hard work, and we often want to go the easy way and just think it will go away, because we don't want to go that path where you have to work on yourself. So it's easier to just ignore it, but on the long run, it will be difficult for your relationship.
On the long run, you won't be able to have a stable relationship if you're not prepared to walk down that path of vulnerability and build the trust that flows out of that path of vulnerability. Because we cannot trust someone that is always guarded, somebody that always has walls up and we can't get to know them. Trust is built on getting to know somebody better. And without that path of vulnerability, you can't build trust. And without trust, your relationship is really doomed to fail eventually in some way.
The good news is the more you do that, the more you admit your mistakes, the more you admit your weaknesses, the easier it gets.
Yeah. In the beginning, it's that pride that kicks in because you don't want to admit your weaknesses. But as you do it more, you become more comfortable with that. And your spouse also becomes more comfortable with you being vulnerable. And it just grows the trust, and it draws you closer to each other, really, because now you realize this person is being real. And let's be honest, in this virtual world we live in, we all have the desire for something real. And if there's anything that should be real, it should be your relationship. I hope you manage to walk down that path of vulnerability and grow that trust. And from us, have fun.